Hello, and welcome to the newest episode of Mikey's Moments. As usual, it's been a little longer than I had hoped, but I've been working on something, so it's taken a little longer. And today, what I'm going to talk about is the NCAA and its failure to give us a Division I playoffs bracket. Yes, we have the small playoffs, and it's expanding, but it's done wrong. And to say that the NCAA can't do it is a bold-faced lie, because they do it at both Division II and Division III. They do it for all the other sports. They have the Final Four of basketball, March Madness. They have the hockey. They have the World Series of baseball. But they can't do it for Division I bowl games. Why? Because they say they have the bowl games and tradition. But it basically boils down to simplicity. The NCAA and its ruling body is very much like the United Nations. It's an organization that has no teeth. Well, in this case, it has teeth, but it doesn't want to use them because it's afraid to bite the hand that feeds them. And that hand that they're going to bite would be the Power Five. And the Power Five, let's call it what it really is, the Money Five. Now, unlike a lot of people, I'm not just going to complain about this. Instead, I'm going to offer up a solution. In another way, as one of my friends Tom would say, Mikey's going to tell you why you're wrong. And that's what I'm going to do. And speaking of that, if you haven't noticed, I've started shorts on my YouTube channel. And if you go to my Instagram or my Facebook or my Twitter, which all have links, I do these new little segments every day on the reels or the shorts or however you want to call them, called the Definitive Three. Me basically telling you the given subject, what the Definitive top three are, and you can agree or disagree, but you'd be wrong. So, here is my solution. Now, to give you a little background, my solution goes back to 2011. Now, you might have just noticed if you're not listening to it, if you're listening to the podcast, you didn't, but if you're watching me on YouTube, I looked over here. Because over here, I have another computer. Not just the one I'm on, I have another computer to open up a drive, my Google Drive. And the document that I'm using, I have just recently modified, but the original date on it dates back to 2011, when the playoff system we had back then was the BCS, also known as the Bowl Championship Series. Or anybody who actually enjoyed college football called it the Bullshit Championship Series. So, I came up with this plan in 2011. I've modified it a little bit, but here are the basics. Now, some will disagree with me, and that's fine, but you'll, like I said, probably be wrong. And the plan I have offers up a solution so that they can keep the tradition of the bowls and they can make their money. Actually, my plan would probably make the NCAA even more money than they do from the Power Five. So, here we go. There are some slight things that the NCAA would have to do. Now, before we go on much further, part of me wants to talk about the NIL, the way they're paying players. This has been a problem for the NCAA for a long time. They make a ton of money off these kids and don't give back. And now they are, but they're not giving back to all the kids. And I had a plan for that too, and I thought maybe I should incorporate it with this. But then I was like, that's two different things, and I don't want to pile on. So I'm instead is going to remain with the playoff system and how I believe they can fix it. So with no further ado, Mikey's solution to the NCAA Bowl Championship Playoff solution. My solution, all the way back in 2011, had a 16-team bracket. And where some of the things have changed, I'll hit on. But these are some of the things. And if you'll notice, again, if you're on podcast and listening, you're not going to see this. But if you're on my YouTube channel, which I encourage you to go check, it's Mikey's Moments, a life adventure at Zod1703. I'm going to be looking at my computer. Now, this playoff system will work as long as the NCAA changes several rules. And here are some of them, or all of them actually. 1. The teams must play no more than 12 games. Some teams play 13, some have 14 with their bowl championships, or not their championship games and stuff. They have to limit it to 12 games. It sits the system best. And they have to say, look, get your 12 games in, get your out-of-conference games, get your conference games, get your rivalry games, but get your 12 damn games. Next, these games must start in the first week of September and be done by the third week of November. Now, that's going to change traditions, and as a Michigan man, yes, I understand that Ohio State and Michigan play after Thanksgiving, but I'm willing to give that up for a playoff system. So, they have to be done by the third week of November. So that means 12 in a row. Don't give me any buys. Don't take off any time. Let your kids play. The third rule, there will be only one game in January, and we will go on to this in a little deeper in a moment here. And then that would be the title game, but the title game is going to be special, and let me tell you about it. So, I am adjusting here. So, just like March Madness, you will have your automatic winning teams. And how do these teams win? They win their conference. Now, using this year's teams, I'm going to break down who would have made the 16 this year, or last year, however you want to look at it, since this year is closing in on us. From the ACC, Clemson would have been your automatic clincher. They would have automatically been in. From the AAC would have been Tulane. From the Big Ten would have been my Michigan Wolverines. From the Big 12 would have been Kansas State because they upset TCU. In the Conference USA would have been the University of Texas, San Antonio. MAC would have been Toledo. Mountain West would have been Fresno State. The Pac-12 would have been Utah because they, too, upset USC. SEC would have been the national title champion Georgia Bulldogs. And from the Sun Belt would have been Troy. The remaining 6 would be the next ranking teams from the schedule, from the top 25, which I've never really understood. I don't understand how a one-loss team can be ahead of a unlost team because, strength of schedule and this and that. But we'll get into a little bit more about that a little later because you know me, I ain't going to let something like that rest. The remaining 6 would have been Ohio State, TCU, Alabama, Tennessee, University of Southern California, and Penn State. Now this is where it gets interesting. After the conference championships, automatic bids come in. Just like in the N64, they take the remaining 16 teams and they bracket them based on strength of schedule, wins and losses, and so forth and so on. So, my 4 brackets would be the same brackets every year. Why? Because we're going to use existing bowl games as those brackets. So, I just randomly did this. I have the first bracket is the Fiesta bracket. Why? Because those games will be played at the Fiesta Bowl. And your top 4 teams there are seeding number 1 is Georgia. Seeded 2, Clemson, 3, Tulane, and 4, Toledo. The next bracket is the Cotton bracket for the Cotton Bowl. Seeded number 1 would be Michigan, 2, USC, 3 would be Kansas State, and 4 would be Utah. The next bracket would be the Orange Bowl. Here, TCU would be ranked 1, Tennessee 2, Fresno State would be 3, and Troy would be 4. And your final bracket is the Sugar Bowl, where it would be the Ohio State, Alabama, Penn State, and University of Texas, San Antonio. 4 would play 1, 3 would play 2, and they would move on. Now this is where it gets interesting. You're wondering where some of the other bowls are. Well, this is where the NCAA is going to make their money. Now, you have these 4 bowls brackets played. They're playing to get to those bowls. So, just for the fun of it, we go back to what I called the Fiesta bracket. Georgia destroys Toledo. Tulane somehow pulls the upset against Clemson. So now Tulane will be playing Georgia in the Fiesta Bowl the following week. Michigan destroys Utah. USC beats Kansas State. So now you got Michigan and USC in the Cotton Bowl the following week. TCU beats Troy. Fresno State barely loses to Tennessee. Tennessee plays TCU in the Orange Bowl. And then the OSU defeats University of Texas San Antonio. PSU, Penn State University, loses to Alabama. Ohio State and Alabama meet in the Sugar Bowl. Now, the other bowl games can send out invites, which means Penn State, who just lost in the playoff bracket, could go play Kansas State, who also lost in the playoff bracket. So these smaller bowls are going to have better teams because personally, a lot of these bowl games, I don't want to watch a 7-6 Michigan State play a 6-6 Vanderbilt. I just saw two teams who made it to the playoffs. That's a better ticket for me to buy, and so forth. Now, these are your quarterfinal games. So these 4 winners are going to go to the semifinals. Now, guess what? Those semifinal games is where the NCAA can make even more money. Because just like the March Madness, they have the road to wherever they're going. These final 2 games can be bid on year after year by stadiums all over the country who want the road to where? I'm telling you where that road is. That's the road to Pasadena. Because what happens is after these 2 semifinal games that are bid on and are played, I'm just going to say for the fun of it, again, I'm looking at my thing here for those of you listening. Lucas Oil Field got one, and the Las Vegas Raiders' new stadium, which loses my mind, they got the other. They get their semifinal games because they're the road to Pasadena. Because the only bowl game we have in January is the only bowl game we should have in January, and that's the Rose Bowl, the granddaddy of them all. It should be the national title game every year. Let me say that again with just even more conviction. The national title game every year should be the granddaddy, the Rose Bowl in Pasadena on January 1st. None of this crap 2 weeks after the new year. Day one. And why? Because it's the granddaddy. Because without it, we wouldn't have these other bowl games. The Fiesta, the Orange, the Cotton, and the Sugar get to be the bracket bowls. The bracket bowls. That's what I claimed that. It's the bracket bowls. Because they're some of the oldest, and they're some of the biggest, and they're the ones that are tied into the Power 5. The Power 5 still get what they want, sort of. But now, all these other teams get the shot. And see, that's the thing when I was talking about rankings earlier, it irritates me. I played football. Didn't play college ball. I played high school ball. I played smaller league ball. I get that. I understand competition. Sometimes bad teams play up to it. Sometimes good teams play down to it. We talk about that all the time. But anybody out there who has played this game understands that going undefeated is a hard thing to do. So when you have a team, and I'm just going to look at my list here. If you have a team, I'm just going to pick Fresno State. If Fresno State wins 12 games, and you're talking to me about competition, they're still playing their competition. It's no different than Georgia playing their competition. And now you're saying, well, they're different levels. They're going to be that. They said the same thing about Princeton in the NCAA basketball tournament. These teams want an opportunity, and this would give them that opportunity. The NCAA would still make their money. Now they've got 2 semifinal games that other stadiums can bid for. Money's just going to be pouring in. The smaller bowls now can wait until after the semifinal, or the 16, the bracket of 16, the 4 bracket pre-get-lims, or whatever you want to call them, to send out their bids. They're going to get better teams, bigger profiles. And those teams are going to be like, well, we had our shot, but we still get one more game to play. And that's what their kids want, because a lot of them aren't going pro. A lot of them, their career's over, but they want that one more game because it's in their heart, it's in their soul, it's in their bodies. And that's what this system gives us. And you never know. Maybe Fresno State has that little thing where they have a really good running back or something that goes off. They upset Georgia, and all of a sudden, well, actually, let's make sure I got the right team. They upset Tennessee, and then from there they beat TCU, which takes them into beating my Wolverines, gets them into the national title game, Georgia. You never know. And that's just it. It's the excitement, the understanding, the ability to give us the opportunity. And that's just it. The reason the NCAA won't do this is what I said before. It goes back to the money. The Power Five conferences, or whatever they're called. They're not the Power Five, they're the Money Five. They're the ones who grease the wheels. And yes, they have the better programs usually. They have the bigger programs. They have the more successful programs. But that doesn't mean that they should automatically have all the bids. It doesn't mean that they should automatically just be assumed to be the better team. Because as I've said in this video, I'm a Michigan fan, and I have to live every year with Appalachian State. Yeah, remember? We lost to Appalachian State. We shouldn't have, but we did. Why? Because they played up to us, we played down to them, and it was the perfect storm. And who says that can't happen in playoff football? Because it does. It happens in Division 1, not in Division 1. It happens in Division 2 and Division 3 every year. And that's just it. The NCAA doesn't want to give up its money. Why do you think it took so long for them not to pay their kids? And I wasn't going to talk about it, but you know what? I'm going to. Because that's where my mind's going. This NIL, some people are making millions of dollars off of it. And some kids are still struggling. What the NCAA should have done a long time ago is, you know what? We're going to take a chunk of this change we're getting. We're going to put it in a fund. And yes, these kids get scholarships. They get education, they get boarding, they get their books, they get all that. But some of them are families. They're married, they have kids, or they're not married and they still have kids and girlfriends and stuff. And the NCAA should have said, you know what? We paid for your stuff. We have this fund, and we're going to give stipends. We're going to give each team in the NCAA $3 million for them to booty up amongst their players so that they can buy the necessities of life. And what are the necessities of life? A roof over their head, food in their belly, diapers for their kids, and the opportunity to live a life that isn't just football and school. Because a lot of these kids, they're not going to go on to be professionals. They're going to go on to be doctors and lawyers and teachers and whatever they went to school with, businessmen, police officers, whatever their major is. But they struggle while you're telling them you're making millions of dollars off of them. So it's simple. This is a plan from 2011. It's 2023. And I came up with this plan, and I'm just a football fan. You're telling me there wasn't some guru in the NCAA room saying something similar to this? They couldn't come up with something like this? But again, their excuse is, well, there's the bowl system. We can't get rid of the bowl system. No. Then modify the damn bowl system. It doesn't take a genius. It doesn't take anything but wanting to. And there again is where the NCAA is a toothless big cat. Because it'll growl all it wants, but it'll never bite. And it won't bite because it's not going to bite the hand that feeds them, and that's the Power Five. And this is how you fix it. Or something similar like this. Steal my idea. I'll be happy with it, and then I'll sue you because I like money too, Mr. Double NCAA. So, this has been another Mikey's Moment, and I hope it was worth the wait. I'm going to try to get this to once a week, and I've said that in the past. But I've got ideas bubbling now, especially with my, as I said, I have these reels and shorts that I'm doing. My mind's racing. And the thing is, being creative gives me an outlet. And it's time that I share that outlet with the rest of the world, whether they want it or not. So, remember, life's a series of moments. Don't pass them by. And until next time, I'm Mikey.